Order! Order!
The ayes to the right, 299. The noes to the left, 70.
The ayes to the right, 299. To the noes to the left, 70. So the ayes have it, the ayes have it. The ayes have it, but the motion has not obtained the majority required under the Fixed Term Parliaments Act 2011. And because coming to the right, honourable gentleman, because the majority required has not been reached, the noes have it. Point of order, the Prime Minister.
Point of order, Mr. Speaker. The Leader of the Opposition, literally and figuratively, has run away from the judgment of the people for the third time, Mr. Speaker. He's turned down our offer to get Brexit done, in spite of the fact that he and every member of his party stood on a promise to
Good evening, welcome to another edition of Scotland at 7. And tonight we just learned literally minutes ago in Westminster that Boris Johnson's deal has actually failed. He's not got the votes he needed to make two-thirds majority. In the studio this evening to discuss today's goings-on and the result of the vote just a few minutes ago is Chris McCusker from the SNP Socialist Group. Good evening, Chris. Welcome back.
Evening.
And so we've literally just come on air as this happened, as these things so often do.
Watching it unfold as we
speak. We were actually watching it live in the studio just as... And obviously other people watching it live on the programme with us there, Chris. So where does this leave Boris now, Chris, with this...
surprisingly not dead in a ditch, but severely floundering on the edge.
He's slipping down the sides
He's
of the ditch.
slipping down the bank. He's slipping very, very rapidly down the bank.
But
this is, what, the 7th or 8th time that he's been defeated in concession?
Yes, I think he must be setting some kind of record for
the
biggest number of consecutive defeats in Westminster.
Definitely going for an all-time record.
We know also later on in Westminster, Ian Blackford will be speaking. In fact, I think we might be able to cut to him just now.
But Mr. Speaker, we don't trust this Prime Minister. And we don't trust this Prime Minister for good reason. So the Prime Minister, if he is going to bring forward a bill, must give a absolute cast-iron assurance that up until the passage of that bill and the rising of Parliament, that there will be no attempt to bring forward the withdrawal agreement bill. And of course the SNP will do its job and scrutinise any bill that comes forward. But it's absolutely demonstrably the case that we want an election. We want the people of Scotland to be given the opportunity to have their say. And we will fight that election. We will fight that election, Mr. Speaker, on the right of the Scottish people to determine their own future.
Hear, hear.
And that we will not, under any circumstances, consent to being taken out of the European Union against our will. And that election campaign will make it clear that the right to determine our future will be in the hands of the Scottish people.
Thank you. Point of order, the Father of the House.
Well, Chris, coming back to the studio again, another very strong statement there from the leader of the SNP group, Ian Blackford. I don't know how many times he has to repeat this to the Commons, but it seems to not really sink in each time.
No, it constantly falls on deaf ears, and it suits them to treat it that way because they have, it's plain for anybody to see that they have absolutely no time for Scotland. And it has been highlighted throughout the whole Brexit shenanigans of 3 years, ever since we offered a compromise, and it wasn't even opened, it wasn't taken out of the envelope that Nicola Sturgeon sent it in. And any time that we've stood up to offer a deal that suits Scotland. We've been told to sit down, shut up, and just suck it up, basically. And that's the way that they disregard us. And I hate to say it, Labour are. They are not exactly got clean hands on this as well, because they have done it to us as well.
The Labour Party seems largely to have also just ignored Scotland, but also to some extent, to my view anyway, stepped back from Brexit a long way. They're keeping it at arm's length. They can't seem to commit themselves one way or the other.
It's a strange position, I thought it was bizarre. All my life, I have always believed, as an ex-Labour voter, an ex-Labour activist, trade union rep as well, that Labour, they're supposed to be the polar opposite of the Tories. So if the Tories wanted one thing, Labour would want another. Now, I can't, for the life of it, I realise the fact that an awful lot of Labour constituencies voted to leave. I fully get that. But to be honest with you, there was a good lot of Labour constituencies that wanted to remain.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Well, and to offer the complete stark polar opposite to the government in question, you have to challenge them on their stance. So it would have been wholly acceptable for Labour to say, that although you voted to leave, here is the case for remaining. That would have been a more pragmatic stance for Labour to have taken.
But Labour are not actually interested in doing that. They're too busy covering. They're basically trying to protect their own MPs' positions and their seats.
Well, correct, but
and it
also
seems to be trumping all the good they might do by trying to oppose.
Also, the fact that Jeremy Corbyn is still fighting the Blairites within the PLP of the party, who are basically trying to control the run of business, because they see themselves as, hopefully getting rid of Corbyn in order to put another leader in place who is more what you would call centre-right more than left of centre. Because quite clearly Corbyn isn't a socialist. He's proven it time and time again. He was a socialist when he was in the back benches, but certainly not on the front bench.
I see. Well, moving things along a little bit here, Chris, the government motion for the general election having been defeated, and the Scottish National Party and the Liberal Democrats have said they would back a general election on the 9th of December if no deal on the 31st of October is taken off the table. Now, what has happened with the European Union today seems to be a guarantee that no deal has been taken off the table. And if this is accepted by the Prime Minister, this extension, that they would not be allowed to leave the European Union until the agreement has been ratified. And not only that, there's a further caveat that the agreement which has been made by Mr Johnson with the EU cannot be renegotiated, much as the DUP would like it to be. That's not now possible.
Yeah.
So what do you make of this idea of having a December 9th election?
The other thing that has to be pointed out before I go on to that is that Ian Blackford had made the point that the PM could not be trusted. And in order to gain some sort of trust, he should confirm that he agrees to what the EU has set out.
But he still hasn't said anything, has he?
Exactly. He is yet to confirm it. Now, also, Corbyn was looking for that as well.
That assurance.
So there is that sort of a bit of consensus there. As Ian quite rightly said, we welcome a general election because we want to return as many MPs as possible so that Scotland's voice can be heard. But make no mistake, and I'm not trying to be negative here, but if we return 59 out of 59, they will still not listen to us.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? And that mandate then, that election has to be fought on the right for Scotland to choose its own destiny, for Scotland to be an independent country and remain within the European Union.
Okay, another aspect of this this plan by the SNP and the Liberal Democrats was also to introduce or to widen the franchise. Sorry, I beg your pardon, it's not the Liberal Democrats. The SNP is suggesting that they include 16 and 17-year-olds and European Union nationals who are living and working in the UK in the franchise as a precondition, I guess, for having a general election.
Yeah, well,
part of the bill anyway, be amended.
You know, I mean, it happens in Scotland now.
Yes.
Do you know?
We already have this.
Yeah, so why should that not be extended to the rest of the 16 and 17-year-olds who will be affected by this Brexit?
Yeah.
You know, we can't just say, right, well, you know, if we're independent, Scottish people can, go and enjoy the benefits of the Erasmus programme, for argument's sake. Then that is then Scotland marginalising the 16 and 17-year-olds who didn't have the chance to vote in the Brexit referendum in 2016. So, it's a great Commons one. What is sauce for the gander is good for the country routine. But also the fact that those EU nationals as well, they surely have to have a voice so that they can say, we are European citizens and we want to remain European citizens regardless of your 4 years, possible minimum stay under your new visa system.
Well, there is also the settled status scheme.
That's exactly what I meant.
Pre-settled status scheme. So those who've already pre-settled
have only been given 4 years.
Yeah,
those that have pre-settled,
yes,
right,
should have the vote.
Should have the vote, yes. But does that apply to the ones that have only been given 4 years pre-settled status?
The SNP are asserting that the vote should apply to all European citizens. Without preconditions. I think that is something that many people would back in Parliament. Mm-hmm. I also suspect that the Labour Party might get behind the idea of 16 and 17-year-olds being included in the franchise because a large percentage of their support is now coming from under 25-year-olds, between 18 and 25, and younger, who see the result of Tory austerity policies in their own neighbourhoods.
Look at Corbyn when he was on the election campaign the last time, and how he filled a festival full, was it Glastonbury or something like that he stood up and he held that audience in his hand, and the majority of that audience, as you quite rightly say, were 25 and under. So I would fully expect for him to support that amendment.
Yeah. Well, as well as all of this, we know that the European Union this morning indicated through a tweet from Donald Tusk, pardon me, that they were going to grant an extension till the 31st of January next year, pardon me, with multiple exit points. Not just one, but the option of being able to exit at the end of November or December if the agreement is ratified by the House of Commons. Now, it strikes me that if there's a general election, that's going to push that back a long way. How far, though? Well, because there need to be a new government formed, new ministers appointed.
If I knew how far that would be getting pushed back, I would be challenging John Curtis for a job.
Well, how long does it typically take to organise a general election?
Normally, it's between. Normally, I think it's 6 weeks.
6 weeks minimum.
6 weeks minimum, yeah. And that is for them to organise the electoral roll, distribute the various boxes to the various constituencies, identify what schools or community centres are going to be used for.
I've also been told that that this bill has to pass before Thursday, or the general election. There just won't be enough time to do it.
No, not in December.
So beg your pardon, the 9th of December rather than...
Yeah.
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 So if it hasn't been done by then it'll be too late for the general election,
Yeah.
I mean.
Yeah. Yeah.
It could be a week later, but then it's getting too close for comfort with Christmas holidays and
Christmas,
Parliament going into recess. So
yeah.
it really, I mean, this is the whole reason for the SNP and the Lib Dems wanting to go for the 9th, isn't it?
Yeah, but make no mistake, I think the last time that there was a general election on Christmas was 1923, and the point
I don't even remember that, Chris.
Well, I was just out of school myself, Gordon. So, but the point that the SNP and Labour have made is the fact that it is not an ideal time to have a general election, because quite an awful lot of students will still be, if 4 o'clock, they'll be just leaving college and stuff like that. Older people will not want to go out, after 5 o'clock.
I believe it's also after the universities go on holiday.
Yeah.
So many people returning home for the holidays will not be in their usual place of residence, but they'll be somewhere else.
Yeah. And then that opens the question of, should we encourage people to apply for the postal vote? And then that opens the old... the old discussion of but they could get interfered with, and boxes can go missing, and and
that's the
Ruth
same
Davidson
for any
can
election.
sample the vote and all that carry on.
I think that particular argument though has been had already.
Aye.
But one of the other things I noticed is that that students can register to vote in 2 different places anyway. They can register to vote in their hometown or home county, wherever that is, or in the place where they're being educated.
Yeah.
So, but they can only obviously vote in the one place.
Obviously only vote in one, And I know this to be the case because my son is studying politics. He's in his last year of politics at Aberdeen University. And although he's registered at my house, he has taken his vote with him so that he can actually go, whatever it is in Aberdeen that he goes to do it, so that he can actually go and take part in that democratic process, which is what Scott's now 23, so do you know what I mean? But I think every student should take part in that.
Well, I mean, I find even my youngest now is talking about voting, and he's 17.
Excellent.
So he's just beginning to get interested now in politics a little bit. One last thing that occurred to me here with this is that the difference between what the Liberal Democrats are trying to achieve with this and what the SNP is trying to achieve with their joint suggestion of the 9th. How far do their interests run in parallel? Where do they diverge, do you think?
The only common consensus that I can see is that Jo Swinson is still trying to manoeuvre herself. I admit I was watching Mar on Sunday morning.
Yes, I saw that as well.
And she
couldn't help
she
smiling.
Seriously, I can't stop laughing. She seriously thinks that she can become Prime Minister.
Yes.
Right. I mean, honestly.
Well, maybe more chance of being struck by lightning.
The only thing that they have in common with the SNP is the fact that they want to stop Brexit.
Yeah,
that's it. That's as far as it goes. Any other flights of fancy that she has, while she's reenacting the, Mad Hatter's Tea Party, is entirely up to her.
I had an interesting thought just while you were talking there. I know that the Green Party is not standing in some key Conservative seats at the moment,
key seats,
except for one, I understand, where they are standing, pardon me, which really leaves it wide open for the SNP to take back all of the seats which were lost to the Tory party.
Highly commendable.
The question in my mind is, can they do the same thing with the Liberal Democrats in the Northern Isles? Is that possible even? Do you
No,
think?
because Alistair Carmichael just will not give up his fat salary.
Why are they so attached to
I
Alistair
don't
Campbell?
know. There must be lovely, wonderful people up in that area of the country, but I wouldn't want to cast any aspersions about their integrity.
I was involved in a campaign involving Mr. Carmichael a few years ago, which you'll probably remember. Anyway, I think we'll leave Brexit now for the moment. I think we have Brexited ourselves out again. And moving on to the next story this evening, which is the story of the truck deaths in this Essex retail or business park. And the driver of the truck, in which the 39 people were found dead, has appeared in court via video link on manslaughter and people trafficking charges on Monday, as it seems more Vietnamese families of suspended victims have spoken of their despair. So the police's assumption, first of all, that these were Chinese people who were being smuggled in, seems to jibe now. There seems to be a large number of Vietnamese people who have paid to be smuggled into the United Kingdom in this way. The driver himself, Maurice Robinson, appeared at Chelmsford Magistrates Court via video link. The 25-year-old, wearing a grey sweatshirt, spoke to confirm his name and address. The police are saying, the prosecution lawyer, is saying that this involves a global ring facilitating the movement of a large number of immigrants into the UK. This sounds like a very big ring that's been exposed here.
Yeah,
I wonder how much more of this there is going on under the surface.
Well, in my experience of helping refugees in France and Belgium, we heard of first-hand stories of people, Eritreans, Somalians, Palestinians, Syrians, all paying in order to get to Europe. These people will, they will start at the top and ask for as much as they can get, and then work their way down, depending on how much money that each one person or one family has. When we were in the jungle, we actually came across a large demographic of, as I say,
this is when you were in
Vietnam. And believe it or not, there were Vietnamese people in the jungle, and they were obviously separated from the rest of the refugees.
I see.
As in because they weren't they weren't part of that demographic.
Right, I see.
So there were clear divisions, within the actual camp itself, although the one common denominator was the fact that they were refugees.
Well, it seems that these Vietnamese families who have lost loved ones in this tragedy are saying that that Great Britain is seen as a good place to go, where you can make a name for yourself, where you can make money and have a good life. Britain seems to be regarded widely as one of the most accepting countries for people migrating there, illegally or not. And many of these people were hoping, or at least one or two of them were hoping to work in a nail salon because they've been told that's what they might be doing, when in actual fact they might be working in something like cannabis production, or working in any number of other businesses and not being paid for doing so, basically being modern slavery, in other words. There's an area in Vietnam which I can't pronounce properly, but I'm guessing it's Ngay An, which was identified as home to many of the victims of human trafficking who end up in Europe. And according to a March report by the Pacific Links Foundation, which is a US-based anti-trafficking organisation, the other province, called Ha Tin, was ravaged by one of Vietnam's worst environmental disasters in 2016, when a steel mill owned by Taiwan's Formosa Plastics contaminated all the coastal waters, devastated their fishing industry and their tourism. So these are people who are actually victims of both natural and man-made disasters. Who are paying to come here in a refrigerated truck and have died simply because they weren't released in time.
You know, and what's more worrying for me is the fact that you know, we don't actually know where the origins of the truck started from.
No.
You know, so we don't know if the truck actually left Vietnam and then travelled its course, you know, in order to get to Europe.
Well, I'm just hearing that the police have actually got the tracking device and the information from the tracker which tracked where this container came from, the trailer came from, and so they're being able to backtrack through.
Right.
But of course they can't publish that. That would be giving the game away to the to the criminals. But they are obviously following this back to its point of origin.
You know, I mean, the reason that I bring that up is because, again, having been in France, I have seen migrants just hanging around the port looking for a soft vehicle target.
Well, there's another piece to this story, which is that the Essex police are expected to visit Dublin this week to interview and seek the extradition of a lorry driver arrested at the city's port on Saturday. The Irish police have detained a 23-year-old from County Down after he drove his truck off a ferry that had sailed from France. The Essex police have identified the driver as a person of interest in the investigation, so that obviously there's some connection. And it's according to the reports, he is suspected of having brought the refrigerated trailer in which the bodies were found to the Belgian port of Zeebrugge before it travelled on a ferry to England. And there is he reportedly spent 3 days in France and disposed of his phone before returning to Ireland, and the Gardaí have detained him on a warrant for assault and criminal damage on an unrelated case. So they've obviously found a way of lifting this guy. Without alerting him to the fact that they knew about this bigger crime. There's now a growing focus on the Hollier company based in County Monaghan, who rented the container in which the migrants had died. And when a newspaper visited his home, residents who described themselves as relatives said he wasn't at home, so they've declined to comment. So obviously this story is growing legs and arms, and it's an octopus of a story.
It's an unfortunate story for a number of reasons. Obviously, the humanitarian reason alone, the deaths alone, but it's also a story that gives the Tory party ammunition as to why they want to close down the borders, as why they want to have tougher controls. Do you know, the other question that I would want to ask is that we haven't had any serious discussions about where the border is going to be. Is the border going to be at Dover, or is it going to be at Calais?
And then there's the problem of, is the border going to be in Northern Ireland as well? Because there's another point of entry there, another weakness.
Two borders in Northern Ireland.
But the problem is that there are no actual safe routes, legal routes into the UK for any refugees. So they're prepared to go to these enormous lengths, these very dangerous lengths.
Honestly, Gordon, as I say, I have heard it and I have seen it firsthand that in France they are prepared to do whatever it takes. They are prepared to. They don't understand the fact that a container is refrigerated.
No,
do you know what
they
I mean?
just
Because
think it's
they
a box.
don't. I don't know what how you fare in your Somalian accent, you know what I mean? Or
the other thing is they don't understand that the trailer's not ventilated, that it's hermetically sealed and it's freezing. So if they don't freeze to death, they'll suffocate first.
And if they get an assurance from a trafficker to say it's completely safe, don't worry about it, you'll be in Britain and we'll
let you out when you get there.
Do you know what I mean? We'll let you out and you can have your liberty. and all the rest of it, you know, quite, you know, unimaginably, that they see that as far more an attractive proposition rather than what they are actually fleeing from.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? And that is the sad thing about it.
It makes you wonder how bad their lives must be to want to take that risk.
Yeah.
Well, Chris, we're going to move on to the next item now. This is a very different story altogether. This is the story of Samira Ahmed, who is taking on the BBC in a landmark equal pay case. Now, she is a BBC presenter, and she has launched this case claiming that she was paid 85% less than her male equivalent, and that's an awfully big differential.
That's a hell of a big differential.
Just based on what kind of plumbing you happen to be equipped with. Ahmed was cheered when she arrived. Sorry, I've just been told that was a rather unusual way of putting it.
I thought it was quite.
Anyway, that aside, Miss Ahmed was cheered when she arrived at Central London Employment Tribunal on Monday morning, and she was accompanied by colleagues and supporters during the BBC breakfast show presenter Naga Monchetti and broadcaster Asma Mir. Now, all of these women are young women, they're professional broadcasters, and we would think or expect that they should be entitled to similar pay to the men who work in the same programmes. But this is not what's been happening. In Ahmed's legal case, supported by the National Union of Journalists, will argue that Newswatch and Points of View are presenter-led programmes lasting about 15 minutes that offer the public the opportunity to air their views on BBC content, and that she has the right to equal pay for equal work. The corporation's legal team, however, will argue that the two presenters were not doing the same or similar work because the programmes are different formats for different audiences. I think they're reaching here.
Oh, of course they are.
You're either presenting a programme or you're not.
Yeah, but is it under the title of it, you know, equal pay? Is it equality for women or is it equality for race?
That's another question entirely, Chris.
It is another question because
it is
the
true.
BBC are viewed as an elitist boys' club.
Well, making this observation, Chris, I can see that all three women do appear to be of South Asian background, but this is mainly about the gender. This is about the gender, and it's about the lack of parity in pay. It might be coincidental that the women have a similar ethnic background, but
make no mistake, whether it is
but it's there.
wholly about, as you colourfully put out, to do with the plumbing, or is it to do with their ethnicity, it is wholly unacceptable
on both levels.
On both levels, to turn round and say, because you're not doing the 9 o'clock news and you're only doing a wee diddy programme of 15 minutes, that's why you're getting paid less. That is not an argument for, the pay scale should be of proportional reality. That if you're doing a news programme for half an hour and you're doing a news programme for 15 minutes, obviously you're going to get half of that. Yes, obviously you're going to get half of that half hour. I would expect it.
Well, that's fair enough, but I don't think that's what's been claimed here. The other thing I think from looking at this is that what we fail to take into account when it comes to presenting television programmes is that many presenters have agents, and the agents negotiate the salary or the fee or the package of benefits that their client gets, a bit like a football player's agent. And so many top presenters are paid telephone number types of, which of course they shouldn't be, because the BBC is supposed to be a British state broadcaster, and a public service broadcaster. It's not supposed to be there to pay the highest possible fee to get the best presenter, but
it does. It
is
look
competing.
At Chris Evans and Philip Schofield and all the rest of it. Who get paid for turning up to open a packet of crisps.
But then we've got the other thing, which is that are they actually worth the money they're being paid in the first place? Is any of them worth that?
I certainly
and the question then comes back to Samira Ahmed's point, which is why not pay them the same? Why not pay the women exactly the same, or at least within a ballpark? a range of salaries, which is what most of us do, after all.
Yeah. But to be honest with you, to go back to your argument about the exorbitant amount of money that they're paid, again with footballers as well, I think that pay in those sectors should be capped at a responsible level.
Well,
people need to understand the fact that there are folk lying on the street. There are ex-servicemen and women that fought in the army that are lying in the street, and they are getting totally left out of society, where these people are turning up, getting paid $350,000 to ask you to give them money for these people who are sleeping on the streets.
Well,
it's simply not right.
It's always the same. People in the public eye seem to get paid silly money. I mean, I can tell you that if Samira Ahmed came here to work for Broadcasting Scotland, that she couldn't get paid less than me.
No, because
I don't get paid anything.
we are volunteers.
We are volunteers. We don't have this problem here. We've got complete parity.
And point of fact, being a socialist, I wouldn't want to claim any more money than you.
My producer has just informed me that if we did have the money, that she would be paid just the same. So there you go. You can take that to the bank. Now, this leads in quite neatly into our next story, which is the story about Belgium finally getting a female prime minister. And the caretaker leader is replacing Charles Michel, who will be the European Council president, and Belgium's first female prime minister in its 189-year history has taken office after Sophie Wilmès was named as the head of the country's next caretaker government. Wilmès succeeds the Liberal leader Charles Michel, who will become president of the European Council, as I just mentioned, on December the 1st. And her role has been described as a poison chalice. Well, there's a surprise, just like here, as linguistically divided parties struggle to form a government. Now, this is an interesting story. Linguistically divided. So they perhaps have a kind of independence type of situation going on here. So Belgium has a caretaker government since December last year, when Michel's four-party coalition collapsed as the Flemish nationalists quit in protest at a UN migration pact. So the Flemish National Party is now, or has been in elections, and in elections in May have so far failed to yield a fresh government and reinforced the country's political divide. So they're in a kind of situation of flux as well, with the wealthier Dutch-speaking Flemish North voting in large numbers for the nationalist right, another worrying sign in Europe, whilst the Francophone South handed victory to traditional socialists. So we have not only a north-south divide, but we've got a left-right divide.
And be Scotland.
And a nationalist and, what would you call it?
Well,
and unionist side.
Well, unionist.
But we have a nationalist left in Scotland. It's kind of the opposite, really.
Yeah. But the common thread for me is that there are two countries, two controlling countries, who are quite clearly not listening to the others in that country. Do you know what I mean? And they're wanting to railroad everything through without listening to other people's voices and opinions. Clearly it's happening here. It's also happening, as we're discussing in Belgium. It's also happening in Barcelona as well.
Of course, in Spain, where it's it's been a battle zone on the streets.
Because they are not willing. They are just you can see the recurrent theme here. Yeah. Like Johnson, he is not willing to listen to anybody else's argument bar his own.
And so the divide remains.
And the divide will constantly remain and ensue. And that's going to be in Belgium, it's going to be in Spain, and also you're seeing it in China as well. Do you know what I mean? And it is just horrendous to see countries, splitting themselves.
And I think this is why Guy Verhofstadt is so anti-independence in countries at the moment, because he sees he's a sort of internationalist. He sees the European Union as one cohesive whole.
Mm-hmm.
He doesn't like to see factions or splits in any countries. But on the other hand, he has ignored what's going on in Barcelona, in Catalonia.
Correct.
One other fun fact before we leave this topic, and that is that Belgium has gone 541 days without a government in 2010-2011, a world record for a country which is not, hang on a minute, I was going to say a country in peacetime, and then it says Northern Ireland Stormont Assembly and Executive, which has not sat for 1,000 days, has just overtaken the Belgian total in August 2018.
Yeah.
But it's not considered eligible for the record since the laws can still be passed by Westminster
Because
in
it's a controlling government.
Yeah. So I think lots of parallels to be drawn from many of these crises in other nations at the moment. Anyway, let's get through the next one. This is Donald Trump appearing at a Major League Baseball game in Washington, D.C. And as soon as his face shows up on the illuminated display screen, he is basically booed loudly, and there are loud chants of "lock him up," which, as far as I remember, was exactly what the Trump campaigners were shouting about Hillary Clinton during Trump's campaign. Now, it's interesting that Trump, it says footage of the incident is swept through Twitter, showing the moment that fans inside the stadium changed from cheering to booing. And Trump left the game with one inning to go, although it was unclear whether he was unhappy with the reaction of the crowd or the fact that the Nationals were losing, or he just wanted to beat the traffic. You could draw your own conclusions, I think. The Astros one win from the World Series title after victory in the Nationals DC. So every US president since 1910 has thrown out a ceremonial first pitch at a baseball game, except for Trump.
Except for one.
Trump has refused to do it. Now, he's said that he refused to do it in order to make the fan experience as positive as possible. Now, quite what he means by that him throwing a pitch was somehow going to spoil their entertainment.
Yeah.
You never know what Trump actually means. He had joked that his bulletproof vest might ride up. That might make him look foolish, which I think is probably more accurate, that he was more worried about looking an idiot. But anyway, he's the first pitch. Well, he's actually said here, I don't know, I got to dress me up in a lot of heavy armour. I'll look too heavy. I don't like that, he said.
Yeah, but I mean, is he not actually a realist to possibly think that, it would be an easy target?
Well, somebody could throw a hard enough pitch, maybe, yes.
Well, I mean, not only that, you know what I mean, but, if it wasn't a bullet coming from a depository room, or if it came from the grassy knoll itself, a baseball mound is just a good place to deliver an exploding baseball.
Well, although I'm not a big Trump fan, I have to say that it's a little bit sad for him, because there's another little fact here which came to light during this entertaining period, and that was that Trump, as a first baseman, was a good baseball player in high school. In a 2014 interview at the Economic Club of Washington, D.C., he claimed, I was recruited as they all wanted me to go in Major League. Well, it sounds like another one of Trump's rather odd statements of what he thinks might be a fact. Anyway, the game ended with a 7-1 victory for the Astros, so the home team lost.
I actually seen the video, and his face was a picture, honestly, when he realised that people were booing, because he thought,
he doesn't like
this just isn't going my way. The argument could be made that he was rushing to beat the traffic, but was he going for a game of golf, or was he going for a presidential
Maybe he just doesn't like looking foolish, which I think is probably more closely resembles the truth. Well, anyway, I'm going to move on from Donald Trump, because he gets far too much time on the air as it is, and moving to another story about, guess what, Donald Trump. Now, this story of Donald Trump is
We'll
a little
stop
bit
talking about Trump to
a
talk
little
about
bit
Trump.
more serious. This is the US Justice Department on Monday, which has said that it has appealed the lower court's decision ordering it to turn over an unredacted copy of the special counsel Robert Mueller's report, which details Russian meddling in the 2016 election to the democratically controlled House Judiciary Committee. In a filing with the US District Court for the District of Columbia, the department also asked the court to stay its Friday order, which directed the government to turn over the unredacted report by October the 30th. So this is a document which is obviously going to be damaging to President Trump, and they're having a hard job prizing it out of the hands of the Justice Department.
I wonder why.
And it's, well, the Justice Department's appeal comes after the district's Chief Justice Beryl Howell on Friday issued a scathing 75-page opinion blasting the White House and the Justice Department for stonewalling the efforts by House Democrats to get information through congressional subpoenas. The decision validating the impeachment process undercuts claims by Donald Trump's Republican allies in Congress who have attacked the process that the Democrats have used. So they're very well, trying to prop Trump up, keep him from trouble.
Yeah. But Trump in himself will not do or say anything until it is up front, close and personal.
Oh, well,
you know, I mean,
waiting a while then.
Yes. But, you know, because he will use any deflection tactic to, use the analogy of the baseball game, to bat anything away from him that, could possibly affect his opinion polls at this time. As long as he is seen to be dealing with this and running the country, shall we say.
Chris, can I stop you there just for now, because we've got another interesting story. This is another potential political scandal, but this time it's not Donald Trump.
Oh, right.
This time it is Keith Vaz, who is a Labour MP, and a story which surfaced in 2016, which was a scandal involving Keith Vaz, has resurfaced. The Labour MP is facing a 6-month ban from Parliament for offering to buy drugs for sex workers and for failing to cooperate with an inquiry. Now, this dates back to an apparent sting operation launched on Mr Vaz by a daily newspaper, in which Mr Vaz was filmed in a flat which he owns, which he had let to 2 men. And in this flat, the 2 Romanian men were apparently male escorts. And he was heard discussing the possibility of obtaining cocaine for them next time he met them.
As you do.
The story includes a transcript of him allegedly ordering them to take up sexual positions. It was a pretty sordid story. Anyway, the report... the Commissioner for Standards who conducted the inquiry into Mr Vaz said he had failed to answer questions put to him about the events of that night or his explanations. He has not cooperated at all stages with the investigation process. He's failed repeatedly to answer direct questions, and he has given incomplete answers, and his account has, in parts, been incredible. Now, I think the story that... the lurid story that this newspaper had uncovered would have been difficult at best to come up with a credible explanation for. But it seems that he's literally just been given a slap on the wrist, a 6-month ban.
Yeah, I find it incredible. And as you say, quite rightly, there is no credible answers for it. Yes, we were discussing the colour coordination of the flat itself, and while we were doing that, we were waiting for a Deliveroo.
Well,
but what I would like to say is that if this story was replicated in America towards Trump, then, you know, I think Trump would pretty much have to stand up and take note. You know, there's that old adage of where there's blame, there's a claim.
Yeah.
There must be something about Trump. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
That you know, is equal or on par to what Keith Vance has done, and yet the politicians seem to be able to deflect it away quite easily.
Oh yeah, can spirit it away and hide it somewhere.
You know.
There's a second string to this particular story, which is Vaz had previously been found to be in breach of the Code of Conduct and contempt of the House in 2002 while investigating claims he'd accepted undeclared payments from businessmen. The Standards and Privileges Committee found that he'd recklessly made damaging and untrue allegations against a former police officer and had wrongly interfered with the House's investigation process, was found to have provided misleading information to the Commissioner of Standards and the committee about his family's financial relationship with the Hinduja brothers, two UK-based industrialists. And at the committee's recommendation, the House suspended him for a month back in 2002. But the report has also said that although 2002 is a long time ago, the breach of code that Vaz was found to have committed, that effectively perverting the course of justice, was a very serious one, and yet was treated with impunity. It strikes at the heart of trust.
Yeah. You know, it's when you read stories like this, you actually realise what a sordid, seedy place.
I hate to spoil your evening, Chris, but there's more of this. And we're coming back to Scotland for this next bit. And this is the chair of the Public Affairs Board, and they have called on Ruth Davidson to resign.
What did I say? Sordid and seedy.
George McGregor, the co-chairman of the UK Public Affairs Board, has said that Ruth Davidson should stand down as an MSP if she wants to join the ranks of the public affairs industry. Now, this is coming from a man in the public affairs industry.
Yeah.
He added, the rules are there for a reason, to avoid any conflicts of interest, both in perception and reality. The SNP MSP Gordon MacDonald has commented on this, and he's said that there's now an immense pressure on Ruth Davidson to resign as an MSP. Questions over her new £50,000 a year role with a lobbying firm, and it's only for 25 days' work per year. Astonishingly small amount of work.
Add that on to her salary.
Of what is it, 63,000 plus expenses? Anyway, all this, she said, with the lobbying firm will continue to grow until she does the right thing and quits Holyrood. These latest comments coming from the chair of an industrial body are utterly damning, an indictment of her position, which is now untenable. Ruth Davidson's clearly not interested in focusing on the needs of her constituents. What was she ever?
No,
it's time the people of Edinburgh Central were given the chance to elect someone who is. So there's a hint there that she should resign and cause a by-election and have somebody voted in who can do the job and who's not. And
who can actually run a constituency surgery on a regular basis.
Who will actually turn up at work.
Yes, aye.
Okay.
Aye. But, you know, again, this is, you know, politicians abusing their position in order for financial gain. Do you know what I mean?
It's the fact that they think it's acceptable.
But it's a running theme, you know, and I'll just I want to point out the complete hypocrisy on this, because one Tory MSP, I think it was Maurice Golden, who actually said that, you know, this is no different to Dr. Philippa working in a hospital.
Yeah, right.
Come on, Dr. Philippa is saving lives, for God's sake. This one's just...
Yeah, and she has to do it in order to keep her licence to practice medicine.
Correct, yes.
So it's a professional requirement.
Yeah,
she can't avoid it.
Yeah.
Well, I'm going to leave Ruth Davidson because I really don't want to give her any more airtime either. She gets far too much too.
She does.
And move things on to something a bit more positive. Now, the Scottish Government has been doing its day job quietly and efficiently, it seems. And it's now, pardon me, its consultation are now responding to back regulation. A consultation on short-term lets found wide support for regulation. Now, this is an area of housing where people are basically rented a flat on a short-term basis and then turfed out without. They basically have a short. And this is actually mostly, I think, to do with people abusing Airbnb.
Yeah.
And more than they're abusing the housing system. Okay, so the short-term lets can offer people flexible and cheaper travel options and have contributed positively to Scotland's tourism industry and local economies across the country, according to the Housing Minister, Kevin Stewart. However, we know that in certain areas, particularly tourist hotspots, high numbers of short-term lets are causing problems and often making it harder for people to find a home to actually live in.
Yeah.
So people are actually renting their houses out instead of living in them for long periods, or just buying a house and getting lots and lots of short-term lets. But they're denying local people a house.
Yeah.
It's basically like a self-running hotel.
Yeah. This goes back to the I can't remember his name. The Green MSP.
Yeah, Andy Whiteman.
Andy
he's
Whiteman.
Quoted in this actually.
I mean, he's been campaigning vociferously on Edinburgh Airbnb people who are abusing and basically exploiting people who have got no alternative but to take a short-term let. And then you know it's not easy in Edinburgh to secure a long-term tenancy. My other son, who used to work in Edinburgh, found this that he had to go and constantly renew his 6-month tenancy.
But apparently this story, Chris, is more about the way people are buying houses and setting them up as miniature hotels.
This is exactly.
And in fact, that they're not regulated in the way that a hotel would be or a house of multiple occupancy would be.
No,
there isn't anything to govern how this is done. What people have to do.
What I'm saying in my son's situation is the fact that he had to constantly go and renew his 6-month tenancy every.
And he might have to renegotiate it as well.
And it was always. It's gone up another £20 and stuff like that. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And he had to stay where he was because obviously he'd secured a job, and just looking around Edinburgh for the better accommodation is an absolute nightmare.
So it's definitely the case. I mean, Andy Whiteman, who has been campaigning for this for a long time, has said that this information that's come in from the consultation actually doesn't change anything very much. As he said, they already knew that it should be regulated, and obviously hosts and companies associated providing services believe there should be less regulation, but we can clearly see the damage a deregulated market can do. So he said he's pleased that the residents who responded were broadly agreed that more regulation is needed and that those who own these properties should be held accountable. But the SNP teamed up with the Tories here and yielded to industry lobbyists in the face of Andy Whiteman's proposals. So there is still a little a disagreement going on between Andy Whiteman and Scottish Government.
Yeah. But again,
according to Andy.
But the bigger question as well, and this feeds into the bigger question of land reform.
Yes.
Which is absolutely off the scale in Scotland, and people are using that for exploitation and short-term lets and all the rest of it. This Airbnb, which is part of the gig economy.
It's all part of it, yes.
Do you know what I mean? This is seen as a general direction of travel where corporate. You don't have to be a corporate businessman in order to cash in.
The problem apparently is that some of these people are operating Airbnb or owning multiple properties.
Yes.
And they become sort of little fiefdoms where people are coming and going every few months, and if you happen to live in a block of flats and there's one of these Airbnbs and the residents are constantly changing, you don't know who your next door neighbour is going to be from one moment to the next.
Yeah.
Could be anybody from anywhere.
And it kills community.
Just to close this story out, it does say at the end, of quoting Andy Whiteman, he said that he was worried that the SNP was yielding to industry lobbyists in the face of these proposals. But he's also said, on a more positive note, he thinks it's just time for the Scottish Government to make more serious progress on this issue. So he's not tearing into them willy-nilly. He's just basically saying it's time to make more headway here.
Yeah.
Anyway, our last story this evening is a more positive one. And this is the reform to disability payments. In an effort to reduce anxiety and stress felt by disabled people. A very good idea. Consultation that supports proposals for a person-centred approach. So not a one-size-fits-all, top-down sort of British system, but more a system that's designed to suit an individual's needs. Something which I think many of us have been campaigning about for years and complaining about. The new Scottish social security system has fairness, dignity and respect designed in from the start. So the measures that will be taken by the Scottish Government will be face-to-face pre-application support delivered across the country. So that means meeting an individual that you get to talk to, somebody that you can establish a relationship with. A multi-channel approach for submitting applications, including telephone, paper-based and face-to-face, depending on what suits that person. Clear eligibility criteria, so everybody knows what they have to provide. Simplified application form. Now that is long overdue because it's so complicated. There's so many things that you've got to fill out. An enhanced role for carers in the provision of evidence. So the carers will get to be more part of the disabled person's help team to organise this. And a greater choice and control over the timing and the locations of assessments, with home-based assessments provided where required. Now, this is a first. Instead of having to get on a bus and troop across a city or sometimes miles to have an assessment with a stranger in an office somewhere, they'll come to the house if that's more appropriate and speak to the person. And also that profit-making companies will not be involved in carrying out the assessments for disability payments, something which I think has bugged you for a long time. The idea of this privatisation of misery that seems to be a Tory core policy.
But not only that, Gordon, and speaking as a carer, and also father of a disabled daughter as well, everything that the Scottish Government are doing, their whole approach to the social security system is absolutely wonderful. I honestly, I can't praise it enough. Jean Freeman, Claire Haughey.
Shirley Ann Somerville here gets a big mention.
Shirley as well. They are all doing a tremendous body of work, and I only wish that it was put out with a greater amount of PR to let the whole of Scotland see how we are wanting to change
our social security system,
not just for disabled people, but also for people that need a hand up in society.
Here's where Shirley Ann Somerville actually agrees entirely with what you've just said. She's just said, I've heard from far too many ill and disabled people who currently know only stigma, stress, anxiety when it comes to assessing welfare support, and the fear or the dreaded brown envelope from the Department of Work and Pensions. That is a terrible thing to have to wait for that assessment. Pardon me. We are supporting people to access the financial support they're entitled to. This is an important thing. They're entitled to this. In a system designed from the ground up together with the people who use it themselves. And it puts the people first, not the department. We're basically saying that we're supporting people to access financial support they're entitled to and actively seeking to move away from the stigma of benefits, to recognise that people are an investment. This is an investment in them.
But also, just quickly, and I know that we're running out of time, but I have to highlight it. And it just shows you the hypocrisy of Jeremy Corbyn when he put out a video when he was in Motherwell, and he was blaming the SNP government for not mitigating against the two-child rape clause.
Yep. Which has nothing to do with the SNP.
It's absolutely nothing to do with the SNP, because it's still a reserved matter.
Yeah.
You know,
which he could have voted against.
Which he could have voted against. And there is only so amount of mitigation that the SNP government can do on Tory policies that he voted for.
Yeah. Well, Chris, I'm happy to let you have the last word on that tonight.
I'm sorry, but I had to get that one in, because
absolutely okay with me, Chris.
The people of Motherwell and the people of Scotland need to know exactly what Jeremy Corbyn is up to.
Well, you've put everybody straight. Thanks, Chris. Ladies and gentlemen, that's it for this evening. We have overrun slightly due to the events in Westminster this evening. But thank you all for watching. And remember that producing television programmes is very expensive. And to allow us to continue to make programmes for you and to pay the bills to run our studio, we need more people to sign up as Broadcasting Scotland supporters. And your £5 a month will help us to continue making programmes. So please sign up on our website. Details appear on your screen now. In the meantime, from everybody here at Broadcasting Scotland and from the team here at Scotland at 7, a very good night to you.